Story 1. I am a 25-year retired military veteran, active duty, and I'm always inclined to push back on these statements. The United States military is by far the best microcosm of the American population I've ever seen, with the exception of its youth who might still align with their parents' ideologies. I encourage anyone to check out any popular military subreddit right now. There is a constant debate and concern about the specifics of the legality of orders that were unseen during the previous administration. The officers are college-educated, and many of the enlisted have college experience as well. We are a diverse community with a history of integration far before the rest of America caught up. We are heavily trained and taught from day one of boot camp that we are all the same. That is imperative to our job. We have strict laws under the Uniform Code of Military Justice against harassment, exclusion, and discrimination of any type, which can lead to real punishment, including jail time, forfeiture of pay and rank, and being discharged. Here's why we get a bad reputation. We are not allowed to publicly speak out against our chain of command, which includes the commander-in-chief. We are allowed to publicly support our commander-in-chief. This includes social media. Ask yourself, which side of the political spectrum is more vocal in their support of the leaders of their political parties? Do you see any blue hats in your towns? Still, as an apolitical organization, political promotion is not allowed on bases. Even bumper stickers are not supposed to be allowed on bases, although that is hard to enforce on veterans and civilians. I'm just asking people not to group service members, the people trained in rules of engagement, escalation of force, where chemical weapons like hosing down civilians with oleoresin capsicum is a war crime, need explicit permission to engage, the laws of armed conflict, swore an oath to the Constitution for all Americans against all enemies foreign and domestic, come from your neighborhood, and have been desegregated since before the Civil Rights Movement, with the Make America Great Again movement with the wave of a hand. If the choice was between the National Guard or any other local or federal police agency in my neighborhood, I'd pick the National Guard 10 out of 10 times. Story 2. I'm not amused watching our commander-in-chief undermine alliances that I fought alongside in Afghanistan. I firmly believe in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as a force that keeps us safer and keeps my kids safer. Undermining this alliance repeatedly makes Americans less safe. I'm a small government, stay out of our personal life sort of guy. Going after abortion like they are, what is going on? Allowing an unelected extremist basically unfettered access to our government makes my skin crawl. I detest Elon Musk. He represents the establishment. He's the 1% and unelected. He's not even an American, just a wealthy individual looking to exploit us further. Story 3. Having lived in Germany for most of my military career, I can support any argument that the United States shields its citizens from seeing how much better our country would be if we embraced even basic progressive policies, like single-payer healthcare. Yes, it is basic. Everyone else has this. The propaganda machine here is approaching levels I've seen in some totalitarian countries. Americans are misled into thinking that buying trivial items is freedom, while people are being exploited in their pay, benefits, and time. I don't see an easy way out of this right now. It hasn't even been 2 weeks, and it is a complete mess. Story 4. Grew up in the 1980s, enlisted in the 1990s. I'm old enough to remember the Cold War, and I'm seeing things in the news on a daily basis that we used to hear about in East Germany and the Soviet Union. Things we would point to and say, I'm glad I'm American and don't have to put up with evil like that. These were the things the bad guys did, and we were supposed to be the good guys. It's hard to feel like we're the good guys anymore. Story 5. Hate it. Hate everything about it. My view of the general population has been in a steady decline since the pandemic. What happened to you people? This isn't who we are. This isn't what we stand for. Explain yourselves. Story 6. So bad I created a subreddit called Vets Against Tyranny and got 1.3 thousand subscribers in less than a week. It's a nonpartisan group open to all Americans who believe in preserving the Constitution. Our moderators are apolitical citizens, communist-leaning, right-wing, and moderate. Story 7. I never saw combat, but I served in the Marines from 2018 to 2022. Take what I say with a grain of salt if you want. This is depressing and unnerving. Before he even took office this year, he had already threatened Greenland and Panama. He also spread blatant misinformation about the death toll of constructing the Panama Canal to get people excited about his schemes. He has since then allowed a Nazi to stand behind a podium bearing the presidential seal, saluting twice. He is also making an effort to start a detention camp for illegal immigrants in Guantanamo Bay. Our grandfathers are rolling over in their graves. Just unbelievable that this could happen again after World War II. Story 8. My time in the military turned me from a liberal to a progressive. It was probably one of the most egalitarian cultures I've ever experienced, even during wartime and during a Republican administration. I benefit every day from the social programs that benefit veterans. I served my country, and then my country has paid me back. Now Trump and his misguided group want to undo everything that I swore an oath to protect. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution from enemies foreign and domestic, and I feel like we're getting closer and closer to some of us having to uphold that oath. Story 9. Somewhat glad there's such pushback from the veteran community, but also mostly confused. The entire handling of the war on terror was more than enough to clue me and other buddies into just how bad things have gotten. Some of my best friends who saw combat came back at the end of it all with an entire feeling of, what was the point? Defense contractors and shell companies got a big payday, and a lot of veterans realized their buddies died for nothing besides that. Now there's a lot more kickback and anger this last week, which is good, but it just feels very strange. Did everyone forget what happened just under a decade ago? Are veterans being used as a political mouthpiece again? And will everyone return to not caring? I hope not, but time will tell. Story 10. For what it's worth, 2/3 of military veterans backed Trump. I have some strong opinions on the current administration, but I also understand only 1/3 of my coworkers agree with my position. Story 11. Feels like it's ending. I'm not counting on collecting my pension for long or ever touching my retirement account. I took the flag off my property. Ashamed to think of my friends and allies across the globe that I've worked with whom we are abandoning or directly attacking. Story 12. Say goodbye to your pension and Social Security. Allies of billionaire Tesla and SpaceX chief executive officer Elon Musk are reportedly attempting to gain control of the United States Treasury's payment systems that handle roughly $6 trillion in payments every year. Now, the top career official at the Treasury Department is resigning. According to a Friday article in the Washington Post, surrogates of Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, which is not yet an official government agency authorized by Congress, are now aiming to control the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. The Bureau of the Fiscal Service oversees payment systems that make trillions of dollars in payments annually to households and businesses, as well as to Americans receiving Social Security and Medicare benefits. Story 13. Two perspectives. First, my own. I'm not a veteran, but I'm going into the Navy in a few weeks. I don't know what to think yet. It's scary, but I don't think backing out is the right choice, though I did consider it. I think driving moral people away from joining the military is exactly what the current administration wants, so I'm still joining. Second is the perspective of my father, a retired Army officer. He's fallen deep into the rabbit hole. The intelligent and wise, though abusive man who raised me, married my mom, a career Army non-commissioned officer, and raised my siblings has turned into a schizophrenic nut job. He's elated that Trump is in charge and wishes he could rejoin the army just so he could serve Trump. He's gone full anti-vaccine, anti-lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, anti-everything left to far right. He's even against women serving in the military, even though my mom served longer than he did and his life was saved by a female servicewoman while he was in Afghanistan. He's literally lost his mind, largely because he's part of a lot of veterans forums that also spout these things. Story 14. Coast Guard veteran here and former civil servant post-service. First off, I want to acknowledge my service experience was very different from the Department of Defense branches, and I will never compare mine to yours. We all made sacrifices, but yours were much greater and riskier. I'm appalled at what I'm seeing. I spent 5 years active duty, 7 in the reserves, and worked federal civil service for 5 years post-active duty. I made the choices I did because I wanted to contribute to something I believed in and for an opportunity to give back. Plain and simple. The opportunity to go to college, get my life together, and do something I felt was giving to the greater good now feels like. For what? For this tyrant to come in, appoint his rich friends to top positions, make themselves wealthier at our expense, and screw over everyone else. It's messed up. I'm not sure I can come up with another way to say it other than it's messed up. Story 15. Did 6 years of active duty in the Army from 2010 to 2016. One of the reasons I got out was how intensely right-wing everything was getting. America has a president who is so deeply anti-American, so selfish and quick to act. He is going to get soldiers killed. He is going to get civilians killed. He just doesn't care. It's infuriating. Story 16. There was a time I would fight for America, but the theme Trump has going is not what I would fight for. However, I will gladly fight against this theme. Story 17. So much hate. This is not what I fought for. The country I stood up to defend is unrecognizable in such a short time. We stood to defend the country not based on race, gender, or religion, but for the people. All of it is now forgotten, and I'm broken. Story 18. There is going to come a day when we are forced to rise up. Just don't count on any social media platforms to assist you in that endeavor. Even in the more liberal platforms, like Reddit, the moderators will remove your posts. We are where we are because the literacy rate in this country is only 54%. Story 19. It's pretty messed up. Veterans before us fought and died to eliminate fascism and Nazis, and now our current administration is trying to bring it back to life. The former president is unoriginal, uninspiring, and typical of how old, narcissistic, insecure, entitled white people can be. It's just sad. Story 20. I can't believe that I enlisted to serve this disgusting country that I call home, and I despise every veteran or military member that voted for him after he spits, shames, and mocks all military members every day for the last 8 years. Story 21. I feel lethargic. I've always thought Trump was an egotistic fool, and I am not surprised that now that he has a losing presidency, he'd go wild. I hate the Democratic Party for fumbling what could have been an easy opportunity. I believe if they had actually run a primary, they could have won the general election. No one is interested in having actual discussions. They just keep talking past each other by sticking to their favorite talking points. People keep retreating into more and more segregated and isolated zones of influence. Story 22. I joined the Army around the time Don't Ask, Don't Tell was being implemented, and I was quite hopeful about the direction my country was going in. If I was going to join today, it would be to disrupt the system as much as possible. My reply to anyone thanking me for my service is, as it's always been, if you want to thank veterans, do it by voting. Story 23. The new Secretary of Defense put out a memorandum this week banning critical race theory training. There has never been critical race theory training. He's acting more like a Fox News anchor than the head of the Department of Defense. It's embarrassing and concerning. Story 24. My experience was that an army that values and strives for diversity is a better functioning army. The right's enthusiasm for Vladimir Putin and Russian machismo is, in my opinion, misguided and ineffective. Certainly makes my skin crawl. Story 25. I've been a combat soldier in the intelligence field with 3 deployments under my belt. How do I feel? Well, I'm banned from the veterans subreddit because apparently pointing out what's happening in our country makes you unpatriotic. My father was a disabled veteran and died homeless a couple of months ago, and I'm a disabled veteran looking at the same path, especially once Trump either cuts off my medicine or my disability income. I've been arrested 3 times since medically retiring from the federal government, including once when Trump ordered the Federal Bureau of Investigation to prosecute me as a protester. Even though I was protected by the Constitution, I was found not guilty by 100% of the jury, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation still hasn't answered why they stood by while I was battered in the back of the Border Patrol station I was protesting at, or why they falsified evidence during the trial. Those Federal Bureau of Investigation agents are now promoted. This has been going on for a long time. I've been shouting it at everybody, and everybody's calling me crazy. In the meantime, I couldn't even register my daughter for school because the Tustin Unified School District in Orange County, California, has limited the approved races to 16 with no option to opt out. Because I felt I wasn't represented, I asked in person to register my daughter because we had already missed a day of school because their web form wouldn't allow us to proceed. I was yelled at to choose a different race by both the superintendent and the police before being arrested. They read the 1950s Jim Crow era California guidance on mandating conformity to the approved races and ethnicities. Then, rather than letting my third grader attend class, they arrested me and then let me go on the charge of trespassing, which the Orange County District Attorney is declining to prosecute. This happened approximately 6 months ago, and the people that hear me complain about it see me as the problem. The system has been fundamentally broken since the Patriot Act.